Maruchan superfans are everywhere. From the busy moms who want to deliver maximum flavor in a flash to dorm room diners who want to put some slurp in their step. There are a ton of copycats you could use. But if you want to bless your bowl, there's only one true Maruchan. Whether you choose instant lunch, ramen bowls, yakisoba, or restaurant quality gold, Maruchan is the only ramen worth obsessing over. Smiles for all. Maruchan. See what all the ramen hype is about at maruchan.com.
Today on CityCast Chicago, mixed signals on the future of ShotSpotter, renaming Chicagoland birds, and we got some great Thanksgiving takeout deals for you. Joining me is executive producer Simone Alisea. It's Tuesday, November 14th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Simone.
Good morning, Jacoby. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just saw the new or the latest Picasso exhibit at the Art Institute yesterday. And so, real fancy. I'm getting into my indoor vibes, right? As that weather is dropping. And so that was my start back. I think my first trip to the Art Institute since at least maybe the spring or something.
Love it. Love that. That sounds really fun. I'll have to check that out.
We've got a few cool things to talk about today, but one kind of starts on a bit of a confusing note, right? City Council is set to vote on the budget tomorrow, and it includes some money, apparently, for the controversial gunshot detection technology, ShotSpotter, a.k.a. Sound Thinking. Mayor Brandon Johnson outwardly campaigned on ending the city's contract with the company that makes ShotSpotter. Simone, are there mixed signals going on here?
Well, yes and no, right? I think Mayor Brandon Johnson was so vocal on the campaign trail about wanting to end this contract with ShotSpotter. But the fact of the matter is there is a contract and it runs through February 2024, and the city is still in it. You know, folks may remember earlier this summer that there was a $10.2 million payment for that contract extension that was passed under former Mayor Lori Lightfoot in late 2022. But I think kind of what makes the signals feel more mixed is that Sound Thinking, which is what the company rebranded to, the company that makes ShotSpotter, CEO Ralph Clark was on an earnings call recently and sort of was up talking the fact that ShotSpotter was still in the 2024 budget, saying like this is a good sign that we're going to be staying in this market. Clark also, has spoken highly of the new police superintendent, Larry Snelling, who is very, very gung-ho on technology, as sort of saying that this is going to be sort of the biggest thing to help Chicago police solve crime. You know, although Snelling himself has sort of deferred the question on ShotSpotter, specifically that particular technology, because there is sort of so much controversy around it. And there has been such a big push from the activist community and from other advocates to get rid of that technology that Chicago police use.
Yeah, shout out to Jim Daly from Southside Weekly for bringing this up. I think this is one of the things Aaron was sort of hinting at in our conversation on Friday is usually around this time, budget dominates the conversations, but we haven't been focusing on the budget quite as much, especially with other things going on around the city. And this is one of those things that feels like it's snuck past a lot of people. Maybe that's because the name change of the company, the way it's actually said in the budget doesn't say ShotSpotter or doesn't say Sound Thinking.
Yeah, it's not like there's a line item for that, right? It's the police spend money on something called software maintenance and licensing. They're spending $8.9 million on that in 2024. It's expected, and ShotSpotter is one of those things. There's like sort of three sort of related but sort of separate problems that have been found with ShotSpotter over the past few years. One is just sort of the efficacy. You know, is it leading to arrests? Is it leading to more guns off the street? And the answer to that has been found to be no. The Office of Inspector General released a report, a really scathing report that said that's not what's happening here. A second question is, is the technology actually, so basically it's a bunch of microphones, right, that are out in neighborhoods and it's supposed to...
That's supposed to particularly pick up on gunshots, but I think what you were getting to is people have pushed back and said, well, around construction sites, for example, it's picking up jackhammers. It's picking up manufacturing trucks moving through neighborhoods that are largely, particularly in Chicago, Black and brown neighborhoods when you talk about the concentration of ShotSpotter.
Right. So is the technology itself actually doing what it says it does? The company says, yes, we stand by our numbers. We stand by this and that. There were also questions about like whether those numbers, whether some of the reports that were coming out of ShotSpotter were changed after the fact, right? It's supposed to kind of be an automatic thing. Again, sound thinking officials have denied and disputed that that's what was going on, but there is some reporting to suggest that there are questions around that. And then the third thing, as you alluded to, is the combination of these first two things. Does that then contribute to over-policing of neighborhoods that are already over-policed? And does that contribute to, patterns of discrimination that it has already been found that the Chicago police, participate in?
When we talk to organizers, they say it's not just, like you said, right? Police officers who already have a larger presence in primarily Black neighborhoods, but the idea that they're responding to an active gunshot or an active shooting sends them to those areas even more charged than before. And so you see in those type of communities a rise in stops. And again, I was at some of those covering some of those Brandon Johnson campaign rallies, and he with no hesitation said, we will end ShotSpotter. Then he got elected and said, the money for ShotSpotter may be better used somewhere else. And now they're asking, and he's saying, the contract is up in February. We'll look at it in February. Simone, is this just sort of keeping his political cards close to his chest?
I mean, okay, right. I think there's two ways of looking at this. You have a contract in place. That is a binding contract. And so like, on some level, there's only so much you can say before the contract is officially up, right? And you got to get this budget through. And February is very soon. We at CityCast Chicago are already talking about some episodes that we might be producing in February 2024. So presumably there are conversations that are happening behind the scenes that we are not privy to. The other thing I'll say, too, is Johnson is not afraid of making big moves. I would say look to the firing of former public health commissioner Allison Arwady. Like, that was something he said on the campaign trail. He had very strong opinions about the city's, public mental health infrastructure, and that was a big part of it. And, she was gone.
I will say sound thinking has a history of suing for defamation. And so I could also understand, not wanting to get into a legal battle with them. But on some respect, it does feel like the difference in rhetoric, not just being sort of campaigning and mayoral. I don't know. It seems suspect to me, given how up in arms people were with that $10 million renewal got signed. And then the reason for that was sort of, I didn't know. It was automatic. It just sort of went through. You would think the next time the company is brought up that there's maybe a little bit more transparency or at least a stronger response. We'll come back to it in February. I don't know who is that? Like who? And at that point, who are you campaigning towards? It just seems classic politician.
Well, and when talking about it publicly, it's worth noting and talking about it publicly. And to your point, like, there's only so much you can say ahead of the fact before you start getting into like very murky territory. So I think we just kind of won't know, and we'll see what happens come February.
Chicago birders, or the bird watching community, may soon be calling some species by new names after the American Ornithological Society announced that it will start renaming birds that are essentially named after people. This has been going on for the last few months. The Chicago Audubon Society is now known as the Chicago Bird Alliance. Simone, why now? Why is the bird community going through this sort of prince to a symbol type moment?
This has been an ongoing conversation for a few years in the birding community. I think for a lot of the same reasons we have been talking about things like monuments, for example. Essentially, people are trying to reconcile the past of some of the the titans of birding and their past actions. So Audubon is probably the biggest example. Audubon, named for James Audubon, who's sort of the father of American birding, right? Like this is like the dude, right? Who turns out had a history of buying and selling slaves, plagiarism in his career, and maybe not the best guy that we want to be naming our things after. And so there's this sort of question too. There are a lot of these birds that are named, just for the people who discovered them or who wrote about them. And there are questions about like, well, how good were, and mostly men, mostly white men, right? What is going on in their past. So partly it's sort of I would say like a political thing, I guess. But there's also sort of this idea that like there are lots of birds that are named for people that like aren't related to each other, so, like biologically or like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like they're like related species. They're just named for the same person. And so there's also this,
just the same person founded multiple birds or named multiple birds.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so like there's this question of like, why is this the way that we're categorizing birds? Like, is there a more efficient, effective, useful way of doing this that also then doesn't contribute to sort of these like problematic histories that we're like, are we elevating them in a way that we don't want to be doing?
Interestingly enough, as somebody who is not into birding, from the example you gave earlier, I feel very prepared for this conversation. We've been renaming Lakeshore Drive, got renamed to DuSable Lakeshore Drive, right? Douglas Park became Douglas Park. We're talking about renaming monuments, renaming streets. But now we're at the point where we're renaming animals. It's an interesting next step in this sort of, let's look back in the history books. What are some decisions we made? And all right, where we can start is just like the names we've given to things. I didn't expect it to expand into to the animal kingdom, but here we are.
Again, I actually think this is an easier decision than renaming streets or renaming and getting rid of statues, to be honest. I actually really do.
You don't think you don't think Cooper's Hawks, the Cooper family behind the Cooper Hawk isn't going to come out and be like, hey, what do you mean? We can't just be a place that gives wine subscriptions.
I don't know what that that means nothing to me.
Cooper's Hawk, it's a restaurant that offers like a wine subscription, which my mom is a part of. So anytime she goes to Cooper's Hawk with my sister or my aunt, they give her like 2 extra bottles to take back home. And so
yeah, I had no idea. I guess where I come from is more like, if I'm someone who's a citizen scientist or whoever who's trying to get into birding, and I'm trying to learn these names, and I'm trying to keep track in my book, like, I would rather have the names make sense to what they actually are, to what is actually being observed and described. To me, that's just like a more effective and efficient way of like naming things. The Ornithological Society says that they're going to sort of start this process in 2024. We're not sure which birds are going to be renamed yet, but there are 3 that in the Chicagoland area that birders might be familiar with that maybe will be part of this renaming effort. And I thought it would be fun if we looked at pictures of these birds and we tried to come up with a name. And the one I want to start with is the one that you mentioned, which is Cooper's Hawk. It's a bird of prey. It's a hawk that is pretty commonly found near Chicago. It's one of the smaller hawks. It's got kind of gray and black plumage in the back and like a white plumage in the front with like brown spots and these amber eyes and like a black tipped beak. I don't know. What do you think? How would you maybe approach naming this bird?
So I was on allaboutbirds.org reading about the Cooper's Hawk, and it says that it kills its prey by capturing a bird with its feet and repeatedly squeezing. So like falcons typically kill by biting, but the hawk keeps it away from its body and just sort of squeezes it out. And so I was thinking about the squeeze hawk.
Oh, or like a constrictor hawk or something like that. Yeah.
My first was suffocate hawk, but then I was just like, that seems a little bit too much.
Brutal. That seems like the opposite of what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
I was really into the hawk. Also has a lot of them have like these amber colored eyes, at least in the pictures that we're looking at here. And so like I could really get behind amber-eyed hawk as a thing. Birders might be in our mentions right now saying why that would be a bad name, but I just feel like that is again, it describes what we're looking at here. The next one I want to take a look at, which is Wilson's warbler, and this is a bird that migrates through Illinois, so you're probably not going to see it as often. It's a teeny tiny little songbird. He's very cute, very very small warbler, who is like bright yellow with like a yellow green in the back and this like black cap on its head. I don't know. What do you think, Jacoby?
I don't know. I was looking at the pictures and it looks like the adult male birds have the black spot on their hat. So my first thought was the toupee warbler or the wig warbler.
Ooh, wig warbler. I can get behind that.
I was going to say, I was like, ooh, I might have talked myself into one. But they kind of look like the peeps. You know, those like marshmallow treats that you eat around Easter? They do look like
marshmallow peeps. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're so right.
And so I was thinking about maybe the peeping warbler, the peeps warbler, something like that, or the marshmallow warbler, something in that sort of.
The marshmallow warbler. Okay, all of your names are so much better than what I was thinking of, because I was looking at the description and they are often in thickets, and I was like, oh, the thicket warbler I think could be kind of cute.
I like that.
Okay, so the last one is Henslow's sparrow. Now, this is a bird whose population is declining, and it breeds in parts of the Midwest, including Illinois. And it is also actually very difficult to spot. It doesn't really sing. It also hangs out in weedy grasslands, which you can tell because it's kind of this like tan bird with like black stripes and spots. So you could see how it would like blend in the grass and tall grass really easily. But Jacoby, for this sparrow, what would you name this sparrow?
So my first thought based on the colors, the spots, was the chipmunk sparrow. Because for some reason, it looks like a little chipmunk.
It does look like a chipmunk. Oh my God, that's so...
Your excitement throughout this is making me so happy.
I will also say another kind of cute thing that happens that you can see, it's like when the bird kind of ruffles its plumage, like on its chest and on its head, it like often has like a black stripe. It looks like a little black mohawk. So I could also go with like, I'm sure mohawk is derived from a bird anyway, so maybe this is redundant, but I feel like, black mohawk sparrow I think could be kind of cute, and I think belies how small the bird is too, which I think is always fun when a bird.
It kind of looks a little bit like, maybe not the outside, but maybe the underbelly of like a leopard or a jaguar. Something about so just like that spotted.
Yeah, like a leopard sparrow. That would be kind of silly. That would be a very silly name for this bird. We're going to post links to the birds we mentioned here. Let us know if you've got better names for them. You can shoot us a text at 773-780-0246. And also just let me know if you see any cool birds, because apparently I'm into that. So, yeah.
Before we get up out of here, we are at that time. We are a little over a week away from Thanksgiving. Now is the time to make those reservations or put your orders in, especially if you're trying to make dishes from a Chicago restaurant, part of that new Thanksgiving tradition. Luckily, we've got a whole guide to Thanksgiving specials at our website, chicago.citycast.fm. Shout out to our newsletter editor, Sydney Madden. One that definitely stood out to me from this list was a throwback to an episode we did a long time ago when we visited Wake and Bacon, the CBD-infused restaurant over in Lakeview. And they're going to have like brunch specials, anything from berry crepes, spiced maple chicken and waffles, and including some mocktails. And so, I love me a good infused dish or two. And our first trip to Wake and Bacon was nice. I haven't been able to get back up there, but that's one I really thought was cool.
I will say one recommendation on here that I'm really glad we have is Soul Veg City in Chatham. Just because I know there are a lot of plant-based eaters out there. Now, granted, I don't know if I am brave enough to put a plant-based, a vegan duck on my Thanksgiving table, personally.
But, no, my family ain't going.
But Soul Veg City does really great work. So like those candied yams, yeah, I'm definitely going for those.
Yeah,
like kale greens, I'm sure those are going to be great, and their cornbread as well. I will also say I am very much looking at, I don't know why, this like Brussels sprout casserole from Split Rail in Ukrainian Village just sounds really good. I don't know. I'm here for the sides, clearly. Like that's what I really
I can get
want
down with that.
in my Thanksgiving. We also, after we published that, one of our readers, Richard, wrote in with even more recommendations for specials. Sugar Moon Bakery in Logan Square is taking pre-orders. Mindy's Bakery in Wicker Park. Also, Funeral Potatoes is doing Thanksgiving delivery. That's sort of that's a delivery only business anyway. But that menu looks really good. There's a Gouda mac and cheese and then Duck Inn in Bridgeport as well is doing traditional Thanksgiving dinner for pickup or delivery. That's if you're really trying to impress somebody.
Hey, another one that's a good option, and I got this from our friends over at Eater Chicago, who put together their own map for places you can dine in or order from. Lexington Betty Smokehouse. We stopped by there with Ariane Nettles when we did our Pullman Roseland neighborhood guide. They're offering a 12 to 15 pound whole smoked turkey with gravy, candy, yams, turkey gizzard dressing, and Gouda mac and cheese. But you gotta order by Thursday, November 16th. You can place it online and you can pick it up next Wednesday out in Pullman. That's definitely a good one.
A smoked turkey, that is worth putting it in order and not doing it yourself. Because it is, number one, it is so hard to smoke a turkey, but it's so good and it makes a huge difference. Also, that they're going to do a good job because that's what they do.
We doing a couple of jerk turkeys over at my mom's house. She's been jerking the turkeys over the last couple of years. And I think this is going to be the first year where we have more jerk turkey than we have just straight up classic turkey. And so we've been moving towards some different kind of turkeys over at our Thanksgiving. So I think soon enough, I don't know if it's going to be my mom on her smoker or my boy Darius on his, but soon enough, somebody in my circle is going to smoke a whole turkey for 12 hours. And I will be there the day that it gets carved. I will be
Jerk turkey sounds good. I would be there. Jacoby, I know you're preparing a Friendsgiving too for a bunch of people. What's the thing you're most looking forward to cooking?
Cornish hens. Cornish hens and dressing.
You're doing Cornish hens?
Yes. I love a mini Cornish hen because it feels like you got your own
extra. You are so extra.
It's like you got your own little baby turkey in front of you, G. I think that's so cool. So yeah, we're just gonna be handing out Cornish hens in this joint. I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea. These Tuesdays mean a lot to me, G.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Before we let you go, Mayor Brandon Johnson has named Dr. Olusimbo Ige as the next commissioner of the Public Health Department. We'll be breaking down this decision Friday morning on the podcast, so make sure you join us. Of course, I'm not going to let you go without some good news. Art on the Mart Season of Lights will begin Thursday at 7:30. If you're not familiar with Art on the Mart, it's a 30-story art projection across the entire facade of the Merchandise Mart in the Loop. The current pieces, Only in the Dark and Geometry of Thought, are amazing, and they end tomorrow night. As always, we appreciate you for reading and listening. We're back early tomorrow morning. We'll talk to you then. Peace.
I believe it's jaguars that will mimic the sounds of screaming children and to get people into the jungle so that they can attack it.
Oh my God, that was the creepiest, coolest fact I could have possibly heard today. What? Oh my, imagine you just like, I'm going to save this helpless kid. And that jaguar's like, gotcha, bitch.
I believe it's jaguars. Don't quote me on it. It's a cat. It's one of the jungle cats.
That's crazy cool evolutionary track.